When I talk to other food entrepreneurs about Ethiopia, they usually think of the country's specialty coffee. But what they don't know is that Ethiopia also produces another high-value crop that's about to be as well distributed as Ethiopia's world-famous coffee. This secret crop is an ancient grain called Teff. Today, I'll take you on my journey as a social entrepreneur and the founder of Lovegrain, a food company with a mission to improve the lives of Ethiopia's teff farmers. Teff has been grown in Ethiopia for 5,000 years. It's considered the country's national treasure. It's used to make Ethiopia's flatbread, injera. And when it's not fermented, teff has a nice, subtle molasses flavor. It's the tiniest grain in the world, but it packs a nutritional punch. And there is going to be massive demand for this gluten-free superfood. Gluten-free sales are surging in industrialized countries because the incidence of celiac disease is picking up. Celiac disease is an allergic reaction to the enzyme gluten that is found in wheat and other crops. Teff is poised to capture a significant share of the growing gluten-free market because not only is it gluten-free, but it's high in fiber, protein, and iron. Moreover, it tastes great. You may have heard of this other super crop called quinoa. Well, to me, teff tastes way better. So why haven't you heard of teff? Well, for decades, Ethiopia was isolated from the rest of the world. And after a drought in 2006, the country banned the export of several crops, including teff. But that's all about to change. The current government is opening up to the world, investment is pouring in, and Ethiopia is growing faster than it ever has before. Teff production is on the rise because of new planting techniques, and for the first time in 10 years, Ethiopia will export teff to the rest of the world. So why do I care about teff? Well, what I care about is social change, and that's what we can do with teff. And I've been around social change my whole life, from my mother, who was a Head Start teacher, to my father, who worked at the World Bank. I remember after one business trip he took to Oman, where his team had helped deploy a loan to a fishing community. He told me about how the community had built a fish processing facility there. It created new jobs, an opportunity, and wealth in a community that it had never seen before. I was fascinated by these stories and wanted to learn more about grassroots social change myself. So I moved to Bangladesh to work for a microfinance institution so I could hear borrowers' stories firsthand. And in a village, 10 hours from Dhaka, I met a woman named Rekha. She got married at a very young age, had kids immediately, and never held a job. She lacked hope, opportunity, and confidence. But all of that changed when she joined a village lending organization. She got a small loan to buy a few chickens, and then she was selling their eggs at the market. With the cash she was generating, she was able to secure a larger loan to start a chicken farm and selling more expensive chickens at the market. She soon became the breadwinner of the family. All the other women in her village started looking up to her and took her on as a role model. She even got elected to the local village council. This was a really big deal for me. I got to see the link firsthand between agricultural activities and social change. A few years later, I moved to Kenya because that's where 3 generations of my mother's family had spent their lives, and I wanted to learn more about East Africa. I was working on a drinking water safety project in rural Western Kenya, and all my neighbors were farmers. And this is what life was about. Even the public health officers I was working with, they were also farmers on the side. I remember one specific meeting where I went to meet with a public health officer, and we talked extensively about the sugarcane crops he was growing before we even got to the first agenda item. And I realized that if I was going to contribute to East Africa's growth in some way, I would have to learn more about agriculture. So from Kenya, I moved to Addis to join the Ethiopian Agricultural Transformation Agency to work on the country's national Teff value chain strategy. And in Addis, I was eating injera all the time, 3 times a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And the Teff and the injera in Addis tasted so much better than the injera I had eaten anywhere else because it was made with 100% pure Teff, unlike blended down injeras that I had eaten in other parts of the world. During this process is when I realized there was real business potential abroad for Teff. During my work, I got to meet some of the country's 6 million Teff farmers, one of whom was a woman named Tigist. In Amharic, her name means patience, but she's been waiting too long for change. She lives in a small village in the southern Ethiopian Rift Valley near a town called Shashamene. Her husband passed away years ago when the family couldn't afford medicines when he fell sick. Her 3 children are all school-aged, and they live together in one mud hut without electricity or running water. Tigist's family has been farming Teff for generations, but she never has enough food to put meals on the table year-round. At harvest, she chooses to sell her grain to middlemen who offer her cash right away, but at unfair prices. A lot of this changed on one project I worked on in Ethiopia. The first thing we did was line up a buyer for Tigist's grain. This was an injera manufacturer in Ethiopia. He offered her the wholesale price for Teff, which was 25% higher than the price she was currently getting. And because she had a buyer, we were able to invest in Tigist's on-farm production. This meant seeds, fertilizer, and new planting practices. With newer seeds that were higher yielding, she was able to get better harvests than she was with her older, less productive seeds. We helped her access fertilizers, something she couldn't get before. And then last, we helped her plant Teff in a new way. Tigist had historically been planting Teff by grabbing handfuls of Teff grain and broadcasting it across the field. But this led to concentrations of Teff seeds in specific patches, which increased competition among the different seeds. As a result, fewer plants actually grew to maturity. By helping Tigist plant Teff in rows, it reduced the competition among the seeds and increased her harvest. This doubled Tigist's harvest. So the combination between doubling her harvest and a 25% higher price tripled Tigist's profits. With this extra money, she was able to send her children to school. She was able to put food on the table year-round, something she had never done before. And this is when the light bulb went on for me, that I was going to start a food company called Love Grain to help Ethiopian farmers just like Tigist improve their lives. So I moved back to the US to join an MBA program to learn how to launch a social enterprise. And in business school, I got to meet some of my classmates who were gluten-free, one of whom was a woman named Shireen. She's a very successful tech executive in Silicon Valley. And she doesn't have time to go find gluten-free foods. And one day, she accidentally ate a product that had gluten in it, and it made her sick. She spent the whole day at the hospital. And this is when I realized I had found a paying customer who would give a premium to Tigist for her Teff grain. With that insight in mind, I wrote a business plan and showed it to my advisors. But they didn't believe I would be able to sell Teff to Americans who had never heard of it. So I decided to produce a Teff-based pancake and waffle mix to prove them wrong. And the product did great. It was moving off the shelves like crazy. We were selling it online and in retailers throughout Boston. We even had requests from retailers like Whole Foods and Price Chopper to get their hands on the product. I learned some valuable lessons by launching the pancake mix product. First was that it is possible to sell a new grain to Americans if it's put into a product form that's familiar to them and sold under an attractive brand. Second, I realized that success in the marketplace was determined not just by how many grocery stores we were selling in, but how quickly we can entice consumers to purchase the product off the shelf. Third, I realized that to build a sustainable and financially viable company, I would have to start making something that sold faster than pancake mix. Today, we're sold out of the pancake mix, but we're working on a high-protein Teff chip. We're trying to bring Teff into people's daily diets. Imagine what we could do if we take Teff into the mainstream for Ethiopia's 6 million smallholder Teff farmers. But there's still a lot of work to be done for the Teff value chain. We need to start creating more international consumer demand for Teff. We also need to start processing Teff in Ethiopia and developing sustainable supply chains out of the country. And third, we need to start working on sustainable contract farming arrangements for Ethiopian Teff farmers. Together, we can satisfy the huge demand for gluten-free and health foods and improve the lives of millions of farmers just like Tigist.